The mission of the Missing in Action project is to make a positive difference in the academic outcomes of all students through a professionally supported holistical middle school framework which will assist all stakeholders to assess and monitor individual student progress so that none of the students will regress over middle school NAPLAN results between Year 7 and Year 9.
What we decided we wanted to do was to shut down the factory model of education and educate for life in the third millennium. The mission is to improve student engagement and commitment to learning so that we can improve learning outcomes and also enable students to become lifelong learners. We needed to consider how a changing world has changed the needs of students and of teachers.
As a member of the steering committee for my school's national partnership plan, I read research that showed that the educational outcomes of those students from disadvantage were less than that of other students, and that it was not an inevitable situation as strategies could be implemented to reduce or negate the difference. And one of those strategies was community engagement, and as a HPE teacher, I realised that our HPE faculty could play our part by providing the exposure and the access to the community partners in the HPE fields of like health, physical activity and personal development. Equipping them with the above values and skills that I was talking about, hopefully in the short term will raise their self-esteem, assist with resourcing, addressing their health issues, reduce relationship difficulties, and deal with other factors that negatively impact upon their learning. In the long term, it'll hopefully enable them to escape the poverty cycle and lead to happier and more fulfilling lives.
With my project, which is called the Super Excellent Fantastic History Project, or more boringly known as Implementing Australian Curriculum for History in the Early Adolescent Phase, it was about providing West Australian teachers with support in order to implement the Australian curriculum and focusing on that sort of 7 to 10 year group.
The purpose of my project was to create and integrate into the school's curriculum plan a habit of mind framework. This framework's role was to assist all staff to demonstrate a common school approach towards fostering student development of the general capabilities of the Australian curriculum. It's going to assist us in creating a school culture that fosters and develops opportunities for the students to develop and broaden their ability to think intelligently.
I like the structure that it offered with the projects. I will often jump into things like, yay, I have an idea, and jump into it. So having that structure to sit back and think and to plan was very, very good. Relating the educational theory to the practice and using evidence to support that, I think, is very, very good, because, again, I will jump in on what my gut is telling me that we need to do, but I probably need to have a bit more background to support that decision.
One of the most useful tools I drew from in planning my project was the peer review process. The peer review comments were invaluable in helping me see ideas in a different way. So often in teaching, you never get that immediate peer critical feedback, but it was a really great learning experience.
Professor Lynn Robinson presented a graph to show the different type of followers, and it made me feel justified for all those times over the years that I had irritated principals and deputies by daring to suggest another way of doing something, or daring to not always entirely agree with their ideas. However, I came to realise that she wasn't presenting it for me to judge the leadership of others that I've encountered along the way, but to consider my own leadership, being willing to seek out, listen to, and possibly even accept a variety of ideas from others, and developing this quality in the other team members accelerates the project well beyond the limitations of just my own thinking, and shares the ownership of the project.
It was the very practical approach to planning and implementing a project. It's worked as a manual. We felt we were working very hard in our classrooms, walking out saying, I delivered that, tick the box, but we didn't know where the students were actually learning.
Through engaging with and using the MIPR project model, I've developed a better project focus, communication process, and approach that does not scare or turn off my most valuable resources, my colleagues.
We've achieved the first 6 stated milestones and have even made some of our target dates earlier due to our great progress.
It's spreading. Last week I had a conversation with a personal friend who works in another school, and this has led to an invitation to present the project to their staff in a PD session. And then this week, a former colleague, now teaching in another school, has approached me via email about bringing DNA 21 to his school. It's got a life of its own now. And of course, once you have some evidence that you're successful, proving the success, you no longer need to defend what you're doing, and people are more willing to embrace new ways of doing things.
We're really only hitting the journey stage at the moment of our project. We're just starting. We know what we want and we know how to get there. So now it's about what we have to do in order to deliver on our deliverables, and it's the challenge of making us follow through and evaluate and think and reassess and think. But I like the structure of the project and the parts of it.
My challenge now, after adjusting the plan based on the comments, is that I would like to fix even a few more things up, yet we are supposed to be in the operationalising stage in the reality of school life. Now, the good news for me is that burden is reduced as the question now belongs to the team. The planned flexibility for the pace and extent of the operationalising, it allows them to take baby steps now with a view to increased activity as everyone becomes more familiar and comfortable with the processes.
We have 3 filing cabinets full of students' names ready to implement and track assessment items. Middle school meeting next week is just for me to present the project. At the moment, I have a support network of senior teachers and the assistant principal who have allowed timetabling so that we are all together and tracking this very, very well.
The reliance of a project on the enthusiasm and skills of one person is risky, but developing a team with shared passion, commitment and goals, it's more efficient and increases the sustainability of the project.
The project challenge that my small school faces is the ability to create real innovation with our curriculum change. So for this project to become real, it's going to have to carry a certain value that has a lifespan beyond any one staff member. We're creating a school belief statement that's going to really strongly value the Habits of Mind framework. So from that belief statement, that's going to be part of our curriculum documents. That's going to start having a life of its own.
I guess the challenge is making sure we don't lose focus on the project and get caught up in the day-to-day things. School is a breathing, living environment, and it's very easy to get caught up in the day-to-day existence.
I feel sustaining and diffusion of the project's momentum to be the major challenge. To track and continually motivate staff that the project is worthwhile and that data will enhance the tracking information we need.
As a curriculum leader, tapping into the power of the leadership skills of all teachers in our community is going to be important in achieving transition for our project, so it becomes a permanent part of the culture for the new merged college.
I've begun to develop further in how I provide details and explanations. I'm not losing people in the process or scaring them off with enthusiasm anymore. That itself is a milestone.
The challenge for me as a curriculum leader is about having confidence in my own abilities. It's also about learning more about how to influence change. So it's that ability to influence change that I can predict what's going to happen and try and problem solve my way through situations with confidence and have the ability to think and communicate with clarity so that the relationships stay intact and that we still have mutual respect and trust with each other.
I was not in a position to use assigned leadership, but I preferred to use the referent power anyway, as it relies on genuine relationships rather than positional or organisational power. So I needed to create a valuing of the need for change in the team members and then nurture a positive team dynamic so that they, as a team, develop the goal. I needed to advocate for them and protect them from negative external influences.
I loved doing it and going through, and the learning part of it was really, really interesting. And the fact that it made me think about my teaching, but it also made me think about my leadership skills and how I approach and sort of looking at identifying where I can improve things.
Now that they are performing better, it becomes so energizing. I use the image of a great big load and the whole idea that if you give me a lever that is long enough, I can move the world. And I said, what we're doing is we're putting our effort into the wrong part of the lever. That's why we're all working like crazy and our results are not improving. Where should we be putting our effort? And of course the physics students told me right at the end of the lever. And I said, well, that's what we're doing. And this is how we ensure that we're putting our effort into the right space.